Welcome to the Theater of Others podcast. I'm Adam Marple.
And I'm Dr. Budi Miller.
And we're the co-artistic directors of the Theater of Others.
Our goal for this podcast is to build an international community of artists drawn together by a shared curiosity in what role theater has to play in confronting global crisis and creating new, thriving communities.
Each week, we'll peel back the curtain on our own views, debates, and speculations. We invite you to join us in these discussions, even criticize us if need be. Let's find the way forward together.
Hey, everybody! Well, I am here with an amazing guest. Adam Marple cannot be with us today because he's decided to go to the theater. How very dare he? He doesn't want to talk on his theater podcast. He wants to go to the theater. But in his stead, we have a fantastic guest. An amazing guest. And what's so great about this? This is the second time we've talked on this podcast, but you only get to hear it this time because the first time we did it by ourselves, and we technologically didn't have Jack David Burmester to fix our technological challenges. We thought we did well. I thought it recorded. I did everything I was supposed to, sent it in, and then Jack said, "We cannot use this. You two have got to talk again." I was like, fantastic. So that gives me an opportunity to go and get my hair did. Yes, I got my hair braided. Yes, I went to DC. I went to Aisha's. And then I came to Delaware.
Maryland.
Why do I keep saying Delaware? Why do I want to call Maryland Delaware?
We are in Maryland.
Why do I want to call it Delaware? How far is Delaware from Maryland?
It's about 60 miles north of us. Mm-hmm.
So it's close.
It's close.
It's close.
Yes.
But does Delaware touch DC?
No.
Okay, but Maryland touches DC.
But when we call Delmarva, when you hear that, it's Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. That's what we call the DMV, which is the DC area.
Okay.
Right.
So we are in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland for you people who are not
That's
in
right.
the United States. Maryland.
This is Maryland.
Maryland.
Yes.
Well, you hear that beautiful voice, this incredible human, Charlene Marie Muhammad. I am so happy you're here. Everyone, please put your hands together and give a big Theater of Others welcome to Charlene Marie Muhammad. Yay! She is the author of Yoga in the Black Community, Healing Practices and Principles. And she's also family, y'all. She's Julie Elijah Martinez's mama. She is the reason why we have the great Julian Elijah Martinez. Now, why does Elijah not do yoga daily?
He should be doing yoga daily because he was practicing yoga as a youngster, as a child. I introduced it to him and he used to call it yogurt. Can we do yogurt, Mom?
That's so him. That's so him. And he asked for it.
Yes. He used to ask for it. Let's do yogurt, Mom.
Wow. Well, hence the exceptional physique that young man has. You know, it's nothing to shy away from or turn away from because he's fine, y'all. He's fine because his mom is fine. He's fine.
He gets it honest. His grandmother
finest in the family.
That's right. His grandmother is a professional ballet dancer. And so it's, we are a family of artists.
Well, I think that's a fantastic segue.
Yeah.
I mean, before we even get into your book, we're gonna start with the lineage because Julian Elijah Martinez does actually come from an exceptional family. And you would never know. He doesn't tell anyone. Don't tell nobody. He don't tell nobody nothing. I had to find out from his mother. Who was Julian Elijah Martinez's grandmother? Your mother.
His grandmother, my mother, is Sheila Rohan, and she was one of the original dancers of the Dance Theater of Harlem, one of the founding members of the Dance Theater of Harlem. He also comes from a lineage of a great uncle, which was the Romare Bearden, and his wife, Nanette, was my mother's sister. So he has a rich lineage of a family of artists. His grandfather, or my father, was a photographer. I see that that's something that he has an interest of now.
He's a photographer as well.
That's right. So he comes from a family of artists. We are that architect of artists. Yeah.
Talk about the dancing in your family. I think this is something that I think this story is so unique and beautiful, and that lineage is so close to my circle of friends. Yeah. I'm just really excited to hear the story again.
Yeah, so my mom, and again, this is how I grew up. She was always dancing from the time that I can remember. And my mom, as a child, had polio. So think about in the 1940s, she had polio. She was in an iron lung.
Oh my God.
And one of the remedies for coming out of once she was out of the iron lung and just getting back to stabilizing herself was to either dance or swim. And so her sister paid for her to have dancing lessons, and she fell in love with dancing. So that's how she started dancing as a child. And but she, as a member of the Dance Theater of Harlem, she was one of the oldest members at 27, quote unquote.
Girl, that's old. That's Saturn return, but that's still old.
That's old. Yeah. And she had 3 children at the time.
Well,
right. So she was married.
She's a Black woman. So
that's right. She was married with 3 children.
Come on.
And she became a member of the Dance Theater of Harlem. And at that time, she didn't disclose that she was married with 3 children until Arthur Mitchell and the Dance Theater started gaining gigs, as you would say, and traveling overseas. And so she had to say, sorry, but, I just have to let you know that
I got kids.
I got some kids. And so at that time, Arthur Mitchell's response to her was like, I wish you had told me earlier, because I would have given you a bigger stipend.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
That is incredible.
My memory is going to rehearsals and performances. I can recall being in the wings at the theater, lying on the floor, sleeping, waiting for her, watching the rehearsals and watching her and the dancers perform. And it was just such a natural part of her life. The other thing about Mom's dancing career is that not only, the Dance Theater of Harlem probably brought her more notoriety, but there was always community dance. So she was a part of an organization called Brothers and Sisters United. So this is the 1960s. So this is about how are we showing our support of the civil rights movement. And so Brothers and Sisters United was one organization that she was a part of. I believe it was her cousin, Fred Rohan, who actually started it. Mom will check me if I'm wrong. But I can recall, going to those performances, performing in them. Chuck Davis, if you know who Chuck Davis is. Yeah, I know Chuck Davis is, yes. Chuck Davis. The history of Chuck Davis is so interesting because my mom danced with Chuck Davis. I danced as a student of Chuck Davis, and then Elijah danced as a student with Chuck Davis. And when he was at Elon in undergrad, and he was like, Mom, I'm taking this African dance with this man named Chuck Davis. I said, go and tell Chuck Davis that Sheila Rohan is your grandmother. And Chuck was like, you are my grandson.
Wow.
Because, my nephew, I think he said, because that's the lineage of it. So, Black dance back then, particularly in New York, at the time, it was a very close-knit community, and it was very much centered around Afrocentricness and the civil rights movement. That's what I remember from the 60s. Yeah.
Well, this has opened up another question, because I think this is also really important, because we've got some company members that are now having children. We have several company members that are now having children. Karina has a baby. Christina's had 2. Romana's having her first. Jimby's she's got her child, Raiden. Can you speak to your experience as a child of a working artist for our women to hear this?
Yeah. Well, I will say probably the biggest blessing we had, that this is in hindsight, was the fact that my mother had a partner, my father, who was willing, and a family who was willing to support her family. So they knew what her goal was. And so we were constantly being shepherded between aunties and my dad. who said to my mother, I recognize that this is something that is your calling, and I'm going to support you. You go do your calling, and I will, hold down the fort for you, so to speak. So for me, it was just who my mom was. I only would say that there's only one time that I think I resented it, and that was when I was like in middle school and she was leaving, and I really felt like I needed my mom at that particular point. But then it's interesting because obviously she felt that, and so she began to pivot and travel less to be with us. But when I was younger, it was who my mother was. And so she dragged us to everything, all kind of rehearsals, everything. So we were constantly there. It wasn't something that was outside of our lives.
I must say that having children in the rehearsal space is so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful. When we did our show last year, Bright Light Burning, we had one of the actors, her daughter was in the rehearsal room, and she reminded us that it ain't that deep. It's just theater.
It's just theater.
And that when we're not really in, it's clear.
Right.
And she gave us feedback.
Yeah.
She would give it. It was amazing. It's like she was, well, that was good. That and then when they were learning certain things within the rehearsal process, she'd jump on board. She'd run through the play, which gave this sense of like when I'm in Bali, the same thing happens. When we're training, you've got kids running in and out, dogs running in and out. They're part of the world.
Yeah.
It's not like this closed rehearsal space, but they're part of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it opened my own world, right? So it helped my own level of creativity. It was something that I felt that was quite natural and innate, that just needed to, it was just a part of me. So I have friends now who tell me that they don't feel like they're creative. And that's a concept that I don't understand, because I see creativity everywhere that I go, and the fact that they're compartmentalizing what creativity means. And then we think about, if you say you're creative, what does that mean? So we are from a creator. So since we are a part of creation, we are all creative.
It's our innate.
It's innate. It's innate within us.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And so, however your expression of that is, it could be dance, it could be singing, it could be acting, but it doesn't have to necessarily be in the performing arts. You can be creative as a childcare provider.
Yeah.
You can be creative as a mathematician. So your creativity.
We hope that you're creative as a mathematician.
That's right. It comes in very many different ways. Right.
One final question about your mom at the beginning of the lineage. What kind of places did your mother perform?
Oh, all over the world. So mom performed all over Europe. Mom also at one point toured with I think it was a Korean ballet company. So she went to Manchuria and parts of Korea and China. She was in definitely in Mexico. I don't know if they were in Central America. I can't remember that, but all over the world. And as early Black American artists, they were very well received, better so overseas than they were necessarily in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, I left 16 years ago, so I know what it feels like to be on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's as we move into your practice, I'm really curious, because you are a devout Muslim from the Nation of Islam, and you're an avid member and a leader in the community. How does yoga, as originating from India and Hindu practices and the Vedas, and how does that interact with your sense of spiritual self, your spirituality?
In my own studies of yoga, which is fascinating, and let me back up, my mother introduced me to yoga.
Okay, the dancer. Hello. Yep. Okay.
So, and this was, oh gosh, in the early 80s, I would say. And mom was practicing yoga 60s and 70s, probably. And so she introduced me to the yoga practice. And the introduction to the yoga practice that mom was practicing at the time, which was integral yoga in New York City.
What's integral yoga?
Integral.
What is that? What's integral yoga?
The Swami is Sevananda.
Okay.
That's the particular South Asian lineage that it comes from.
Okay.
That yoga practice, their focus when I learned yoga was meditation.
Okay.
So you were sitting in meditation, then having a breath practice of pranayama, and then having an asana practice of physical yoga.
That's brilliant, actually. So, that's actually the way you should do everything.
Well, yeah. And when you look at the yoga philosophy, if you're practicing that particular 8 limbs of yoga from that particular philosophy, it's really the yama and the niyamas first, which is those interactive practices of what I'd say, do unto others as you would do unto self. So you start with those interactive practices first. Then
so let's define yama and niyama. What are the two differences?
So in Patanjali's philosophy,
what's Patanjali?
I'm sorry.
We got all our laymen out there.
So Patanjali was a South Asian yoga philosopher who codified basically the practices of yoga that are followed in the West here. Because there are many different, when you say yoga, you're saying fruit. It's like saying fruit. Okay?
I practice fruit.
There's many different,
I have a fruit practice.
There are many different spiritual practices within yoga, right? So, and there are many different lineages.
Doesn't it mean one with God, yoga?
Yoga means union.
Union, yes.
It means union.
Yeah.
So, but in the West, here in the United States, in the West, I'll say, so Patanjali and his Yoga Sutras, he codified a particular practice that most
will recognize as yoga.
Would recognize as yoga.
Okay.
And so we have the niyamas, which are really the do unto self practices. So these are observances that I do to make myself a better human being. Okay.
So we're investigating. Right. We're inquiring
within ourselves. Okay. And then there's the yamas, which is how do I interact with you as another human being?
Fantastic.
So that's
through you, I know myself.
Right. So when those beginning limbs of yoga, when you're coming into, if you're following that particular path of yoga, that's how you start. What are my introspective self, my observances of myself, and then how am I interacting with my fellow human being?
Which is also myself.
Exactly. Right. And then you move down to doing the other more physical practices, sitting in meditation, working on my concentration, pranayama, doing my breath practices, going into my physical practices themselves. And all of those other physical experiences are to help me to move closer to my relationship with the Creator. That is the one of the paths of yoga.
What I love is that there's a beautiful, simple way of interacting with the different states of awareness.
Yes.
As a part of meeting the Creator.
Right. And to me, just in relationship to Islam, that there is only one truth, and all other expressions of truth come back to that one. So the saying is that there are many paths to the one truth. Isn't that beautiful? That our Creator would not say there's only one way.
It's really beautiful,
right? That it's not like you confess the Lord Jesus Christ and you're saved, and that's it. I mean, that's a way.
Allah, that's it.
That's it.
Yep. No, Buddha, that's it.
That's right. There are many.
Shiva, that's it.
That's right. How the creation is not that narrow, I would say. So when I think about you, if you're out in nature, you don't hear the cardinal tell the blue jay, I am the chosen of God. I'm the chosen bird. You don't hear that, right?
I think the dove says that.
I'm telling you, I had an experience and during COVID, looking outside my little window here, observing nature, there was a speckled hawk sitting on a branch next to a squirrel. The squirrel was doing his or her business, and that hawk was hanging out. And I was like, wait a minute.
Aren't you supposed to be?
Aren't you supposed to be? No.
I love it.
So the hawk was like checking out, like looking down, like, let me see if I can find a mouse or something else. And the squirrel was over there going, I'm doing my business. Yeah.
Not today, Satan. Not today.
Not today. Not today. So, nature, it's only really human beings have this this hierarchy and this competition.
Yeah.
And actually this competition on a spiritual level, that is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. So with yoga, to me, and what we strive to do in yoga in the Black community is to show the alignment, right?
Yeah. To
show the alignment of these faith traditions. And yes, so we credit yoga as a practice in Southeast Asia, meaning India. However, if we go back in the eons of nature, we know that in the history of time, that portion of South Asia and East Africa were very much entwined.
Intertwined, yes.
Very much entwined.
All of Southeast Asia and Africa.
Exactly.
All of Asia.
And so
South Asia, Southeast Asia, yes.
And so the seat of spirituality is in that section, right? And so there's Kemetic yoga that's like, look, it's ours, and there's South Asian yoga saying this, hey,
yeah, come on,
it's the creators. Yeah, these are tools of the creator. Yeah. And they're tools that we can all use for the benefit of our own health and healing. It's amazing
because I have my very first supervisor, Osita Okagbue. He came to Bali to check out my research. And he was so taken aback at how similar the Yoruba tradition and the Balinese tradition was, so closely connected.
Right.
And it affirmed the unspoken knowledge that I was viscerally feeling with the Balinese.
Yes, yes.
And whenever Black African diasporic actors come and train with me, they feel it as well. So that caravan of our ancestors intertwining with each other.
Yes.
And you can also see it. You can also see it in the Indonesian art, like the mask work and the god worship and the ancestor worship is so clearly connected to an African root.
Absolutely. Right. Because we are, this is the Aboriginal practices of human beings.
Yeah.
And I like to think that we're in a time now in history where those original traditions need to be excavated.
Yeah.
So that we have this remembrance. We're at a time now we have to go back to those. We're being called to go back to our original.
We're being challenged and forced.
Yes.
We're being thrust into greatness.
Absolutely.
We are.
Absolutely. But we are only as great as from where we came.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank God we came from Africa.
Hey! Yes. Thank goodness we came from the earth, as we talked earlier.
Yeah.
We're from the soil. Yeah. We're from this original portion of the earth.
Well, that's a fantastic segue. Can we talk about your passion of nature?
Yes, my goodness. So I've always had, which has brought me into this work itself. So I've always been intrigued by nature. I grew up in the inner city, and yet I've always had a passion to move towards understanding nature in a better way. As a young girl, I was a Girl Scout, so I had to get those kind of experiences themselves. And then
peppermint patties.
Exactly. No, mine was the peanut butter cups. But anyway.
Oh, peanut butter cups, yes. Delicious.
So when I started my family, you know, my little Elijah, I was living in Seattle,
Your
Washington.
little Elijah. Did you hear that, Elijah? You know he's listening.
I was living in Seattle at the time, which is where he was born, him and his brother. And I had the great opportunity and fate that both of my sons were born at home. So I had a midwife.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is next level and amazing. And I want to hear about that.
Yeah. So
I'm sure we all want to hear about that because.
Yeah. So, well, long story short, so I'll start with Elijah's story. So I'm expecting, and I went to my good friend took me to the John Bestier Clinic for Naturopathic Medicine to have a pregnancy test. And when I went there, they were like, "Okay, you're pregnant." Okay. I'm ignorant. I have no idea. Do you know how much it costs to have a baby in a hospital?
In America, hello.
I was like, no.
How much was it at the time?
I have no idea. They just said some exorbitant. I was like, no. Said,
it's 60,000 in some places, 60 to 80,000 USD, y'all, in some places to have a child.
Right. So they said, you know, you can do it less expensively. I said, really? They said you could do it at home. I said, okay.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Do it at home, y'all.
And and so they connected me with the midwife.
DIY, do it yourself.
Exactly.
DIYP, do it yourself pregnancy. You heard it here first, folks.
Exactly. And I got connected with a midwife and who happened to also be a naturopathic doctor and an herbalist. And so after my delivery and she followed up with me, she started teaching me ways to use herbs.
Medicine.
To support my family. So my poor sons, you know, I experimented on them a lot, but look.
Well, look what we got. Look at what we got.
Right?
Look at what we got.
So, but I started experimenting with my family and then learning and doing some self-study around herbs. And their dad too also is a gardener. So that was very helpful as well, because he was very much connected to the soil. And so we would have gardens and I would grow herbs and I would experiment with them. And then my family and friends would start asking me questions about that. And so after many years, I decided to do a more formal study of it. I'm like, you know, I've been experimenting with this for a while. Let me figure this thing out. Let me do a little deeper. So hence I went to school and I got my master's in herbal medicine. Amazing. And added that to my tools in my toolbox. That's what I call them. And now, having worked with herbs for many years and gardened for many years, I'm in a master gardener program here.
What's a master gardener? So
a master gardener is a member of a conservation course, right? Okay. So in United States, the land grant universities have what they call cooperative extensions. And this was started probably, I think World War II, cool. Around the Victory Gardens.
Yeah.
So as ways to teach the community how to feed themselves.
I love it.
And so that tradition has not gone anywhere. I've been striving to do this for years. So they have this Master Gardener program basically, and they're teaching you about conservation and the ecosystem of where you live. So every state has one. And so it's an extraordinary course. You know, basically we're volunteers. There is a small fee that you pay. If you can't afford to pay, then they give you a scholarship. And you're learning about the ecosystem that we live in. And I think I shared this with you earlier. You know, we're learning about all aspects of that. So the soil,
yes,
which is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Because it is alive. And as I've been looking at just learning the biology of the soil and comparing that or aligning that to what you read in the scripture about how man is created out of dust and mud and dirt, and realizing this live soil, you know, and that is actually connected, directly connected with us.
And the bugs?
And oh my God, the beneficials. They're insects. They're not pests.
They're not
beneficials.
Yes, they are.
Right. And we are living in this symbiotic ecosystem where we can be supporting our lives all together. And if we all had a better understanding of that, like how we get food, without the insects in the soil, creating and cultivating the energy of that soil that gives us the vitamins and minerals that ultimately our plants absorb, that become what we eat for nourishment, is all symbiotic. And you have a great appreciation for it. Absolutely.
And see, this is what I love, and I'm so happy you're here, because this is actors training. Literally everything that you're saying and doing, and how you're interacting with self and your relationship to other through self, is actors training.
Yeah,
it is the linchpin and intersection of exactly how I work with actors.
Yeah.
So this expansion into the actual real source of life is where the best acting comes from.
Absolutely. Because you're an expression of creation, right? So the actors and the performances that always resonate with me are when I can touch that from an actor, when I can see that they have that direct connection. There's that poetic, they have a poetic expression of what the words are, the music are, the dance are, right? And that's what they're expressing, right? Which is what the creation is. Absolutely.
And from a yoga standpoint, I was first introduced to yoga in my actors training, and the first year we had yoga 3 times out of the 5 times a week that we were in class. And the first semester, even the whole first year, I was crying most of the time. I was releasing so much, and the kinds of inflexibility that I had was profound. And the direct connection to my emotional life from my body was awakening. I had a yoga teacher that didn't quite understand what that relationship was, but she was caring enough to understand that I was going through something deep to let me sit and be with it, and not try to force me to go anywhere else than be where I was.
Yeah. Well, the physical yoga practice is, for many of us, the first step of getting out of from the neck up. Most of us live from the neck up. We're always in our head. And so the beautiful aspect of that physical yoga practice being, pranayama with the breath work, as well as the physical asanas themselves, it gets us out of here, out of the head, out of, living up here, in our ego, I will say. And then we now have that experience of being back in our body. I remember having a yoga student take a yoga class first time, and then we went to Shavasana. And when we came out of relaxation, Shavasana, she said that was the first time, and this was an older woman, this is the first time I heard my heartbeat.
Wow. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the first time she actually connected with her heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, the asana practice, it does. And there's a lot of science around what happens with the...
So asana are the poses?
Yes, the poses. Right. So there's a lot of science around that. We don't, physiological things we can talk about, but basically the different poses that we're taking are activating in 2 ways, depending on what traditional medicine aspect you're looking at. If it's Ayurveda, then it's the chakra system that's being activated.
So it's an energy system.
It's an energy system. Okay. If it is the traditional Chinese medicine, it's the meridians. So all of that is being activated. And if and for many of us, we're holding energy blocks. We're blocking certain things.
Suppression.
Exactly. Around the chakras or the meridians. And so, as you said, in your experience, as they begin to open up, we can have an emotional response to them, which is beautiful. So there's a letting go that can happen just from having the yoga practice itself. I'm older than you, so I'll have my conversation with you. When I was going through beginning of menopause.
Okay.
I was.
She said the M word, y'all.
Right. I was having insomnia, and so I went for a year. No, 9 months. It wasn't quite a year. Once a month, I went to yoga nidra. And yoga nidra? Yoga nidra.
See, that's a yoga for everything.
The yoga nidra is yoga sleep. So it's a deep relaxation. Wow. So basically, you're in the position of shavasana, but
Shavasana is the corpse pose where you're lying on your back. Yes.
Correct. But supported with a lot of props.
Okay.
So you can let your body completely go. And so it brings you, it is like a guided meditation, and it brings you just before REM sleep. Okay.
I'm already feeling it. You said props, and you said
and just
gravity, props and gravity.
And then the guided meditation of the yoga nidra takes you right before REM sleep. So you're not at REM, but you're below that. So you're in a deep relaxation. Okay. And what we're told is an hour of yoga nidra is equal to 4 hours of deep sleep. It is awesome. And I did that for 9 months, which cured my insomnia.
Yoga nidra.
Nidra. Nidra.
Yoga nidra. And you talk about this in your book.
Yeah, I do talk about it.
And so this is a great segue. First of all, y'all all need to get this book. It's a really good read. Yoga and the Black Community: Healing Practices and Principles. What I love about this book is that it is so well researched. It deeply interacts with the content of yoga from the intersection of a Black body moving through the work, as well as being an expert in your own right, a specialist, an expert in your own right through the yoga practices, through the many opportunities you've had to embody different forms of yoga, which is what yoga is. It's the embodiment. It's not the reading of a book,
right?
But you have it fully embodied into your whole cellular makeup. And the way you talk about it is so approachable. And then you give us ways to find it and interact with it and practices. So how did you even start? Because you have this is a personal question as well, because I've got a big lexicon of experience, but how did you, because it's not a thick book, y'all. It's very readable. Like that's approachable as well. Like it's not this big old tome of like, okay, here we go. Give me to the meat of it. It's really direct and clear. How did you refine your approach to communicating such complex ideas and covering such a broad scope of intersection of yoga? How did it start? How did you do it?
Well, the book was started because Marilyn Pepper Citizen and I, my colleague and friend, we were attending the national at the NIH, so it's the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine wing of the NIH 20th anniversary. And we're there, and they're talking about all of these health disparities. And every health disparity they're talking about, Black folks are at the bottom. And then they're talking about all of this wonderful research on complementary and alternative medicine, yoga being one of them, and how they were beneficial to these health disparities. And Black folks were not at all in the equation.
Yeah.
Not at all in the equation. And so, this was not something new. And after that, she and I were talking. I'm like, well, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to sit here and go, woe is me? Or are we going to address it? So that was one of the impedences.
Is that what we would call woke?
That's right.
Is that what we call woke?
That's right.
Waking up?
That's right. So we were like, we're gonna woke this up.
Yeah, woke it up.
The other thing is that we were discovering in myself, I have been a yoga teacher trainer for yoga teachers in training. That Black yoga teachers in training, Black yoga teachers of color were having a very challenging time in yoga spaces becoming yoga teachers. They just didn't see themselves. They didn't feel welcome. A lot of it, I will say also, is this with us, is that we anticipate being triggered.
Yeah, well, yeah, we walk in with our pain body, so we're not actually having a boundary. We're just ready to fight.
That's right. So we were discovering that. So we were like, okay, what can... And the third thing is that young people don't know our history.
Yeah.
They don't know our history.
I love how you touch this in the book.
Yes.
That's actually quite brilliant, the way you talk about Black history and yoga practices and how they intersect. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. And that to me was very important because that's how I lived my yoga, you know. So I wanted, and that was the biggest question I was often getting from people of color who were studying yoga. Why should I do this? This is a white thing, particularly here in the West.
Yeah. It's Lululemon.
Exactly. Exactly. So this idea that, wait a minute, let me reshape your definition of what is yoga when we talk about union with the creator, and how this is a practice that has always been within Aboriginal people.
Come on.
We've always had this connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's go. Let me reconnect us to that connection.
Can we go back to those two terms that that you brought earlier about self and my relationship to self? Can you bring that? What were those words again? Because I want to bring that.
Niyama and the yamas.
That already sounds African, by the way. That sounds like a Black girl name. Niyama and the yamas. That's a Black girl name. That's Black.
That's right.
This is my daughter Niyama and her sister Niyamas.
That's right. And so what are those observances that we have within ourselves?
Yes.
Exactly right. And so the goal here in that section of the book is to align that, to say, hey, wait a minute, this ain't nothing new. Yoga ain't nothing new.
Yeah.
This ain't nothing new. This is something that is innate in our culture, in our DNA.
Yes.
It's innate.
Yes.
And we just need to rediscover that within self.
Yes. It ain't nothing new.
Ain't nothing new.
It ain't nothing new.
No.
Because I think about, like, you know, in a church space, when something big happens to us, the community says, speak on it.
Yeah.
Put action on it.
Right.
And that feels like the yama niyama.
Yes.
Because there's this internal experience.
Right.
And I'm going to speak on it, which is also performance,
right.
which is also contemporary performance, which is also a deeply rooted indigenous Black expression.
Tell your
speaking
truth.
On the experience.
Tell your truth. Right.
Speak on it.
That's right.
Put form on it.
That's right.
Give it life.
That's right.
Move through it.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right.
So with that knowledge, put that in an asana world.
So with that knowledge, so if I were to support a yoga practice in the Black community, let's just use that as an example, since which we have the books, which is for it, then the first thing I would want to do is to have my community come back to their breath. That's the first thing. We've been robbed of.
Okay, let's do this. We're going to do this. We're going to come back to the breath. Okay.
Right. We've been robbed. We've been robbed of our breath. So let's do a little bit of conversation. We've been robbed of our breath.
Okay, I'm putting my hand on my heart chakra, my heart space, my chest.
So most of us breathe up here. We breathe this shallow breathing
in the chest. Yeah.
In the chest.
Yeah.
We don't get deep into the breath.
Where you're putting your hand on the belly. So I have my hand on my belly now.
Your lung capacity is your whole rib cage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you know the diaphragm. You're an actor, so you know that. So the idea now is to get the breath deep into the belly. Right? So if you exhale your breath completely, and now this can't be forced because most people don't know this. Now see, if you begin to inhale, can you feel the expanse happen in your hand by your belly.
Okay.
So begin your inhalation. Your diaphragm moves down. Can you feel your belly expand, which means you have lung capacity down low. And the breath travels all the way up to the top of the rib cage by your heart space. That is a deep, full breath, right? I can feel that.
Yes.
And when you exhale, then your belly and your lower hand is moving back towards your spine as you release the breath all the way up to the top. So the first thing we want, just the act of you taking one hand over your heart and one hand at your belly, you're actually giving yourself permission.
Mm-hmm. I can feel that.
To breathe. You're giving yourself a loving touch, a therapeutic touch. And the breath practice that is most beneficial here is what we call the 4-7-8 breath.
Okay.
And so the breath, and I'll keep talking before I walk you through this. So the breath is in 3 parts, right?
Uh-huh.
There's an inhalation, there's a natural pause, there's an exhalation, and then there's a natural pause. And if you think about the wave of an ocean, that is its rhythm and flow. It waves up.
And it's
pauses.
Circular. I can feel it. It's a natural circle.
It's a natural way to do that.
I can feel that. It's
mm-hmm.
I can feel the breath mm-hmm. moving up.
Right.
And I love that image of up and over my heart.
Right. And so the 4-7-8 breath would be something that I would absolutely offer first. It's mm-hmm. also something that I do with children because it is a relaxing breath.
It is really deep.
So if you exhale your breath completely, I'll walk you through a round of it.
Okay.
And then we begin to inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause your breath. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Slow, steady. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. More. 5, 6, 7, 8. So your exhalation of your breath is what stimulates the relaxation response in the body.
Yeah, because I felt that was interesting because at the end of that breath, I felt a surrender drop.
Right.
And release.
So you want a longer exhalation because that is what stimulates relaxation, right? Now think about, so the pausing of the breath, that's the other thing. So just bring your hands down into your lap and just breathe naturally and see if you can notice the pause that happened. Don't force your breath to stop. Just notice the breath pause. It's the pause within the breath is where creativity lies.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the self lives. Yes. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's free.
It's free.
It's not doing anything.
No. And the other thing is there are people in life, there's giving and receiving. So the breath gives and receives. Some of us are, we like to take. And the inhalation of the breath is taking.
Yeah, and hold it and have a rib expansion and holding.
Right.
And
right.
Right? And it's all stale air inside
exactly.
there. Yeah.
And some people, they live there. They're just taking.
And they're just big. They're in aggressive positions. They're armored. Their chest is up. And they're ready to fight.
Exactly. And then people who are depleted because they're always exhaling. And they don't take. They never...
And then you get forced to take their space because they won't take the energy and you get pulled in. It's like, can you take some space?
That's right. That's right. So it's finding the balance in between the two and having folks begin to tune in to that pause in between the breath because that's where creativity is.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to walk us through creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of us have that big idea? We go,
uh-huh.
Oh my God.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
And even and also when we're laughing too, we're like, it's like, oh my God, I can't breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it starts spinning again.
Right. That's right. Right. But that, if we can connect, that's our connection to nature. That's where it is, right? The seasons of the 4 seasons of nature. Let's just put that also follows that ebb and flow. You know?
Yes, it does.
And if we can live within those and not battle against it, you know, it's winter time and we're still trying to keep plowing through stuff. When that's the time when we should be hibernating.
Yeah,
that is the pause.
Yeah,
winter is the pausing of the breath.
Winter is the pause of discontent.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
You know, right? Yeah. And so, and then in
spring, you actually spring forward. You spring.
Right.
You spring.
You spring forward.
You spring forward. You spring into breath.
That's
right. You bloom.
That's
you
right. And then in the summer and late fall, you begin to exhale all of the beauty that you have learned and you share. There's the wisdom. Yeah. Yeah. So we have to begin to tune it. That to me is yoga.
That is yoga.
We're
that is a practice I'm up for.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That is a practice I'm up for.
And all the other things are tools. Doing your poses is a tool. Pranayama, breathing practices are a tool.
Yeah.
Reading the philosophy is a tool. Meditation, they're all tools.
Yeah.
What is the practical application of your life, though?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your tools, but then what are you showing for all the things that you have done?
Yes.
All of the great people that we love and know who are sharing their knowledge and wisdom, you know, they live their lives. You know, they had a practical application. And that's why I love to read memoirs and such. And I think I told you.
We were sharing memoirs. Yeah.
I went through. I reread Maya Angelou's because
I got to read that one.
All of her. You know, she wrote like 3 or 4 of them. Yes. Right from I Know How the Caged Bird Sings all the way to
that's the classic.
Heart of a Woman. Okay.
I mean what a trajectory.
Yeah.
Caged Bird to Heart of a Woman that's
yes.
That's a life well lived.
It's a life well lived. And she shared her story and she shared her journey and the lessons that she learned along the way. That's the beautiful part about it, you know. So, and she lived out loud and she was creative. She was acting, she was singing, she was writing, she was dancing, you know. She lived a creative life and she lived her life, you know. So, life is a beautiful thing if we would not live in fear.
Yeah.
You know, we're stumbling around in trauma and fear, and those are the things we need to let go or learn from those experiences because those are real emotions. So it's not about hiding those emotions. It's acknowledging that they're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll tell you one more point.
Come on, get one more again. Come on, one more again.
So in the Holy Quran, and I think they say this in the Bible as well, but in the Holy Quran, it says that man and woman are created in haste and are impatient. And so I've been like, okay, I always thought about this as a negative thing. Impatience is such a negative thing, but think about that. If the Creator created us impatient, there is a value to that. If we weren't impatient, we wouldn't crawl.
Well, yeah.
If we weren't impatient, we wouldn't walk.
Yep, that's it.
If we weren't impatient, we wouldn't talk.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's an energy in there that is necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also an energy that needs to be disciplined.
Yes.
In order for us to become more creative.
Which is where the pause is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop the story. What's left?
Right. That's right. That's right. Stop. Running. I can do this. I can do this. No, wait a minute. This is good energy.
Yeah.
It's good energy, right? Now, what do we do with this? Mm-hmm.
And this is where what we always talk about when you and I gather about what's happening in this world right now is that frantic energy that is requiring us to stop and pause.
Yes. Yeah. Right. That's right. Oh, so we'll get to our big analogy here. So what is that frantic energy? So if we think about in nature, how does it present itself?
Growth.
Oh, well, let's talk about how it presents itself in its destructive form, in a form of a tornado.
Okay, yes.
So we have that wonderful tornado that can tear stuff up.
Rip it up. Fire.
Exactly. That's right.
Burn it down to ashes.
Exactly. But there's always, in the tornado in particular, I have to do a little bit more about fire, but in the tornado in particular, there's an eye to that storm.
Yes, there is an eye in that storm.
And so it has a direct path that it's following and going along. So we can stay in the eye of the storm.
Yes. Stay in the pause.
Or
stay in the eye, y'all.
If you get up in the clouds, you're going to be in the chaos.
You're going to be in the frenzy.
You're going to be in the frenzy.
You're going to be locked up in the wheel of fortune.
That's right. That's right. So stay in the eye, because ultimately the eye runs its course.
Yeah.
And then
the center of the wheel doesn't move.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yes. So we have so many examples in nature. This is why I think it's important in a yoga practice where you are spending time in nature. And it doesn't matter if you're in an inner city, if you are in the country, if you're in the suburbs, there's nature all around us, you know. I remember being in Seattle about 10 years after Mount St. Helens erupted. And I went up to Mount St. Helens. And what I found so fascinating was the new growth that was coming up. So this is also what I found out. Did you know that new soil comes basically from volcanoes? So we need them because they make new soil. They're the beginning of new soil. So what was beautiful,
which is why Bali is so fecund.
That's right. So, you know, we're walking up these Mount St. Helens trails, and I'm like, this is amazing. Here in these lava patches, we see growth coming up. But we have that in the cities, okay? Weeds are amazing. We call them weeds. But, honey, those dandelions have been on this planet longer than us.
Yes,
okay? Ma'am. And they will work their way out of any crack.
Yes, they will.
Any crack in the ground.
Yes,
it doesn't need much, because we had this conversation earlier. What does a plant need to... The plants don't need human beings to live.
They don't need us.
They need sun. They need air. Right? And a little bit of soil. They don't need a whole lot.
They don't take much.
No, they can even create their own.
Yeah, because when they die, they become soil.
They become their own. And so, you know, life will spring up from anything. So, you know, we're sitting here acting like, you know, these great edifices that human beings are growing or building are the be all and end all, and they're not.
Well, and that's and so a spiritual acting practice is the same. You must go out into the nature.
Yes.
You must be and communicate with other human beings and be with the nature of what you are.
Yeah.
This is also why I love Bali so much, because it's all about interacting. Beautiful. So us talking right now, we're actually in prayer right now.
Yes.
This conversation is actually prayer.
Yes. Yes. And these are the kinds of conversations that we want to encourage our fellow human beings to be having
all around the world.
All around the world.
Yeah.
And turn off the news.
Turn it off, y'all.
Turn
off the news and turn to the person next to you and have a conversation and talk about the soil.
That's right. That's right. Go outside and find you some beneficials, i.e. insects.
Yeah.
They're the beneficials.
I love worms. That's right. And ladybugs.
Wait,
okay. Before we go on break, because we're going to have to go on break, I need to know, what is the importance of the ladybug?
The ladybugs are a beetle, and they actually, they eat, they help to manage other predators that would not necessarily be supportive of other plants. Okay.
Wow. So they control the etiquette of growth.
Yes,
they're ladies.
Yes, they do. Yeah, and they're amazing. And I believe that I have some kind of nest in our crawl space attic,
Mhm.
because every winter they come out in my window, and I'm like, oh, there's ladybugs out here. And so I believe they're overwintering up in that space. But they
I love that.
Yeah, but they absolutely are. They're in the beetle family, and they help to support they help to support the life of other plants. See, I don't like to have a conversation like these insects eat these predators.
Yeah.
No, they just balance nature.
It's all become an alien movie. The
That's
predator.
right.
The predator versus the ladybug.
No, right. No, they're just balancing nature, right? This is so fascinating. There are insects who will use other insects as host for caterpillars are good for this. They will use other insects as host. They will basically infiltrate them, lay their eggs.
That's what that blue butterfly does in the UK. Like, they act as an ant larvae,
right.
And the ants feed it
right.
until it's a butterfly, and they're like, bye, Felicia.
Yes,
thank you. It was delicious. This was the best Airbnb I ever been at.
Exactly. But, that's how the creator designed
it.
So I don't like to say that this is a negative thing. I'm like, well, this is interesting. Very interesting. So I'm sacrificing my life for you to lay your eggs inside of me. So you can bloom.
The metaphor is getting too big. Okay. I think I don't want no predators in my house.
Exactly.
I think we need to take a break. We'll take a break and we'll come back with provocations, yeah?
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary conforming individuals, you're listening to the stereo sounds of my daughter, JDB. Jack David Burmester. And we're back. Yeah. Thank you, Jakina. Wow, nature. You're bringing in the nature. Jack composes all the music, so he goes off of our themes. Thank you for the nature, Jack.
Beautiful.
All right. Charlene, we are now in provocation land. So provocation land is we like to give our listeners something to do, something to think about, some sort of provocation to get them activated around theater. But I would really love for you to activate them around yoga and nature, because we've been talking so deeply about it, and I think it's really important. I never kind of isolate provocations, but I think the value of having you here, I wanna move into this direction. And it's something that you may possibly be doing it yourself. That's like, I'm so curious about this aspect, or there's something that this is, what I do, or read this book, go in this direction, read this book, Yoga in the Black Community, first and foremost, right? By Charlene Marie Muhammad. But what else? What other provocations would you like our listeners to do? Because our listeners are all around the world. We're like in 96 different countries around the world. So
I would like all of us to dedicate time every day to be quiet. When we talk about meditation, it is not this deep sitting in the lotus position, humming.
Yam Naho Rengekyo. You don't have to be Tina Turner?
Yeah, you can be Tina Turner. But giving yourself time, and you don't need a whole lot of time. You can start. When I started with my meditation class, I had them be quiet for a minute. That was challenging. Close your eyes and pay attention to your breath for a minute. They found that challenging. We are now at 15 minutes after, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay? Because we're constantly, the chatter of the mind is what is killing us.
Yeah.
So we all need to have quiet time, ideally, every single day. 1 minute, put your timer on, sit down and tune into your breath. After a week, 2 minutes. After a week, 3 minutes. Increase it. The benefit of quieting your mind, what that does to recalibrate your stress axis in your body is phenomenal. And we just don't know how stressed out we are
until we stop.
Yeah. So that would be the first thing I would say. We all need that, because I can't say pray. I could tell y'all pray all that. You do what you do, but if you could just be quiet for 6
Now you sound like my mom. That's like, boy, could you just be quiet? Could you just be quiet for 60 seconds?
60 seconds. It's challenging.
Yes.
Where you are just literally counting your breath. Inhale 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, exhale 4. Do that. I think that's one of the first important things to do.
Okay.
The second thing I would say is to treat yourself to a walk outside wherever you are. And again, I'm not saying walk 50 miles, a mile, 2 miles, but can you say, I'm going to go outside? And when you go outside to take your walk, go outside and take your walk like this is the first time you are seeing your community.
No iPads, no iPods, no headphones, nothing.
Leave your phone inside.
Leave your phone inside.
Leave it inside. Just go outside. Give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If you can't, give yourself a lengthy time. But do that. And I say that because whether you have an overcast day, whatever kind of weather it is, remember we had our conversation about plants, right? The air and the sun is energy.
Yeah.
And if it will change your perspective, get out of the house.
Yeah. Come on.
It will change your perspective. Okay. If you're sitting in front of your computer, your device all day long, you're becoming very myopic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are stimulating your stress response.
Yeah.
You're staying constantly in your left brain, which is constantly moving, right? And never recalibrating yourself. So I want everybody to begin to find ways to recalibrate. Let's get back to that recalibration of our stress response. The third thing I would say is make yourself a cup of tea.
Yes.
Herbal tea.
Any herbal tea you'd suggest?
Non-caffeinated.
Okay. Why non-caffeinated?
Because we are recalibrating our stress response.
Copy that.
Okay. And the process of making a cup of tea in itself is therapeutic.
It is.
So if you only have a tea bag, that's fine. It'd be nice if you had some loose tea and a strainer. But if you don't have that, get a tea bag, boil some water, steep that tea, take the time to make yourself a cup of tea, right? A nice herbal cup of tea, whatever flavor feels good for you. If you want some suggestions, try a mint.
Yeah.
Peppermint, spearmint, lemon balm, lavender.
Yeah.
Okay. Mints are always wonderful things to do. If you prefer something fruity, hibiscus, hawthorn, those are wonderful ones you can do as well. If you feel like you need to relax, have some chamomile tea. That's another one. These are just general teas. There are so many beautiful plants that are waiting to serve us.
To interact with you, yes.
They're waiting to serve us. Okay. Have some honey.
Yes.
Not sugar.
Yes.
Agave.
Yes.
Not sugar. Plain, just having the tea itself. Smell it. Brew the tea.
Feel the heat.
Feel the warmth of the tea. Smell the aromatics of the tea. That in itself is therapeutic.
I love this. And if you can't do it every day, do it at least every other day or once a week.
Once a week.
You know?
Right. I have a client who has found a way to have an hour a week. And I'm so proud. I'm like, wonderful. You are a workaholic.
Yeah.
You are now telling me I found an hour a week.
Yeah, that's deep practice.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Well, that's my segue into how can our listeners find you?
You can find me on urbanherbalist.org. That's my website.
Urbanherbalist.org, y'all.
Urbanherbalist.org. That's and on social. I'm the same thing. I'm Urban Herbalist on Instagram and on Facebook at the current time, and LinkedIn.
Fantastic. When you offer classes?
I do. My classes are online, and you can if you go on urbanherbalist.org, you can get my class schedule.
Y'all, you got to sign up. Sign up. We got to do like a package or something. We give a discount code or something.
Absolutely. We could do that. We'll
figure that out. That sounds good.
Yes, absolutely.
And the only way you're going to know about this is you've got to subscribe, y'all. We come to your inbox every single week for 5 years. We've come to your inbox. How are you going to know about these wonderful guests and how to get deeper into your sense of self if you don't subscribe? And if you really love us, if you love Charlene and you want to give her a little comment, say, oh my gosh, she was amazing, I'm going to give 5.2 stars. You write it in the comments and it gets in the algorithm, and then we go from the top 5% podcasts in the world to the top 1% podcasts in the world. And then, do you know who comes, Charlene?
Jesus.
On that note, Jesus is coming, y'all. I mean, that's a mic drop right there. If Jesus is here, it's the return of Jesus, y'all. So subscribe, 5 stars. Give us 5 stars like my Uber driver. 5 star. Charlene, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thank you so much. Beautiful conversation. Anytime. And
we're gonna have to bring you back.
I would love to come back.
Yeah, and we'll have to bring it back with Julie Elijah Martinez.
Yes.
It'll be a family affair. Yes. Fantastic. And y'all, we'll be in your inbox next week. Bye. That was hot.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Theater Brothers podcast. Make sure to visit our website, theaterbrothers.org, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. A special thank you to Purple Planet for the music you've heard. The Theater Brothers creates a shared community of artists and audiences for the purposes of exploring the most profound issues of our lives and times. We believe the play watches the audience. The audience is necessary, and they are witness to what happens. And you get to be witness to us making that happen. The purpose of this podcast is to open up our process and let you in. We're peeling back the curtain, so to speak, and encouraging you to follow along, to ponder, prod, and question, to join us and criticize us if need be. Being a witness is no passive task and requires much from you. Are you up for the journey? Be sure to tune in next week for our next journey.